I had a franchisee not too long ago, a couple months ago, we were having a conversation. He just says, Nate, should I be feeling guilty that I'm only working in my business like 2-3 hours a week? and and the rest of his team is right. I'm like, no, you shouldn't be. That's what you built this for. If they could have seen how much work and effort you put into it the first couple of years to get to a point where you could enjoy the fruits of your labor. And that's what entrepreneurship is all about, is creating the life that we want to live.
Hey, welcome listeners. Today I have the distinct honor and privilege of hosting and inviting and speaking with Nate Tu, the CEO and co-founder of KeyRenter Property Management. Not only a company based out of Midvale, Utah, but a company that has franchises all over the country. And I want to talk about that and get into that story as we dive in here with Nate. But Nate, welcome to the show today, man.
Paul, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're in Utah, which is one of my favorite places in the world. So anytime I can get out there, man, I'm loving life.
Oh, man, it's beautiful here. It's great. Mountains, if you like getting out in the outdoors, of course, skiing, snowboarding, hiking, southern Utah. I went there just a couple of months ago with my kids, my family. It's beautiful here. And sun's out. The snow's melting. We've had record snows. It's just a great place to be.
Sweet. Well, let's dive into this, man. You've got an amazing story. So we have a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners and wannabes that are listening to the show and watch the videos. And your story of building a business and then scaling it and then successfully franchising it, to me, is just fascinating. So tell us the story on kind of where you came along and how you got into business and kind of the whole genesis here.
Well, it's a fun story. It's one that starts back in 2006. I always had an interest in a desire to get into real estate and specifically into real estate investing. And I had a mutual friend with a guy that I was introduced to, and his name, the person I was introduced to, his name was Aaron Marshall, who later became my business partner for 15 years. And the day I met Aaron, he was a broker and actually a part owner of a Keller Williams office here in Salt Lake City. And the moment we met and we connected, I just knew, okay, this is a guy I want to hitch my wagon to. He was very successful as actually an REO broker selling bank foreclosures. I started working with him and helping him sell bank foreclosures with Keller Williams. And that's how I got my start in real estate. Before that, I actually did door-to-door sales, selling home security systems, and couldn't wait to get out of that and back into something a little bit less, in that way, direct sales kind of situation. But really enjoyed working with Aaron. I think we connected really quickly just in our values, our vision, what we wanted for the future. Our families, very important, and I think that initial connection fostered a great relationship and a partnership that over 15 years as that flourished and grew and allowed us to do a lot of fun and interesting and great things together. But there's an element of selling bank foreclosures that is property management related. Sometimes you have homeowners where it forecloses and you're working with the banks to do a cash for keys situation, or sometimes even a lease back. And people thought we did property management back then, when really we were managing these bank homes. But then something happened with the market turning, right? 2007, 2008. We were flipping some houses. He and I both wanted to be doing that, flipping houses, taking advantage of the market at that time. But then we had homes that weren't flipping. And so we turned them into rentals. And as I was managing these rentals for us, it just made sense that we would turn that into a business. And so we actually, took some thought and we put some planning into it and started this business in property management. We actually had a wrong phone call too that really helped us out, give us some motivation with some investors out of California that said, hey, we heard you manage homes for clients. At that time, we didn't. We're on the phone. I remember just saying, and they said, "Will you take these 4 properties on for us?" And I just said, "Yeah, we'll do that." and Paul, it's so funny because they didn't ask for the name of our company. They didn't ask for anything, and luckily they didn't because we didn't have it yet. But very quickly, I focused on property management. Aaron, my business partner, continued to have his REO business, and that started to wind down as the Foreclosure Act was passed, and it was more challenging for banks to foreclose, and so that business dried up a lot. But in that about 3-4 year span, we grew this local property management company to several hundred homes under management. And me being a systems guy, having a background, education in business and economics, and really just thriving in kind of the tech space that was just really in its infancy at that point, in property management specifically, I was really geeking out on some of the tools that we could use to leverage to make the business easier to run. And eventually we got to a point in 2013, 2011 actually is when it started, this desire of going nationwide. And we were looking at opening up our own offices, our own locations in Arizona, Colorado, Nevada. We were looking at getting licensed. And we quickly realized, okay, for us to open these locations nationwide and for us to own them 100%, we're going to have to travel quite a bit. We're going to have to carry the liability of these locations, the trust accounts, the things that are associated with that, staff, hire, train. And it just wasn't something that really set well with us. And so we were looking at other options, and we saw, it's kind of funny. I watched an episode of Undercover Boss. You seen that show, Paul?
Yeah.
Like that show?
It.
I'm sure a lot of the listeners or viewers like that show too. And there was an episode in October of 2013, the founder of Menchie's. Okay. And I watched this episode. I was so inspired by the franchise concept and his franchise model that the next day I go to Aaron and say, "Hey, Aaron, what do you think about franchising? What do you think about us taking this and aligning with partners, business owners,
Right.
that would be vested in their business? They would be taking the reins from us in these local markets and growing from there." And we had seen that work in our space. There's a couple of other franchisors still active today, and they're actually they started out of Utah as well. Utah's kind of this incubator for a lot of things like that. But he said, "Well, that's great. Why don't we come up with a list of things we need to look for and look into as we're evaluating franchising as an option. Come back the next week, say, Aaron, what do you think? What should we evaluate? How should we do our due diligence on this?" And he says, and this will help you get to know Aaron Marshall a little bit. He says, "What are you talking about? I already have the website. I already hired the franchise attorney. We already have this. We already have these things going." And that's just who he was. He was the guy that, man, he just had so much vision and such a drive to move things forward. And he and I were like yin and yang in the sense that, I was there to kind of put things together and integrate and just be able to help move the vision forward at a with the logistics and everything that happens behind the scenes. And so he continued in that role as CEO, visionary, so to speak. If some of your listeners follow the EOS model of business and entrepreneurship, the Gino Wickman style traction. So I was more the integrator. He's more the visionary. Today it's different, and in large part because of his passing. Aaron Marshall actually passed away from an 18-month battle with cancer in June of 2021, coming up here almost 2 years. And so that definitely changed things. I'm sure we'll get into more of that, but that's kind of how we started and got into property management in the real estate space. There's no better business, in my opinion. If you're interested in real estate, if you're a real estate agent, if you're an investor, property management truly is the center of all opportunity in this industry, I believe, because you work with investors that may tire of their properties. It gives you an opportunity to buy some of those back. or it gives you an opportunity to grow a stable, cash flowing, passive, or I should say recurring income basis business that allows you to scale and have a business that's small or as big as you want it. We've got some franchisees with 50 to 100 doors making really good money, and they choose to keep them a little smaller. And then we have some offices with 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 units under management,
right,
with multiple layers of management. And the business works in a lot of different ways. And so we saw the opportunity for us to grow in property management through franchising. So that's how we got our start and kind of that progression of the company, Paul.
Wow, man, that's very interesting, Nate. There's a lot to unpack there. So this idea, I mean, a lot of ideas hit me along the way that the entrepreneurial methodology of sort of opportunity kind of presents itself, and you jump on it with the call from the guys from California that had these 4 homes. You guys were kind of dabbling a little bit, and you're like, yeah, we're in that business. I love it. It's entrepreneurship is not about sitting around thinking about dreaming up your ideal business, right? It's about taking action, taking some arrows, and kind of figuring out as you go along the way. And what I can really appreciate here from you is that as you guys did that, you obviously were very malleable in the beginning with Aaron and the foreclosures, but then moving with the vision, expanding the vision as you had feedback, and the growth. And I'm really, this idea, you mentioned you're a systems guy. So many people are in business as they call themselves entrepreneurs, but really they're just technicians in a business, right? Where they show up and it's not a lot different than maybe they own, or they're working in a job somewhere, but then they decide they want to be self-employed, but they're still doing the same kind of stuff, right? Trading their time for dollars specifically. And a lot of that's due to the fact that they never put the proper systems in place, right? To kind of take themselves out of the equation a little bit and scale up. Talk to me about that. And because you mentioned you're a systems guy, what were some of the things you were able to do to recognize early that would allow you guys to scale to that level? Because there were some things you had to put in place to make that work.
Well, when you think about back 2007, 2008, a lot of cloud systems were really new, right? So, I mean, at the time when I was looking at different property management software that we could use to scale, because a lot of mom and pop shops were using, Excel spreadsheets to track rent and expiring leases. And even today, many still do, right? Especially if they have a handful of properties, 15, 20, 30 properties, they can maybe be successful with that. But you get to a certain point, you've got to have some software that tracks things for you, and you can automate more as far as some of the communication with tenants and owners and notifying team members that things are coming up, right? So you're not letting things fall through the cracks. And so back then, there wasn't a lot available, but we were using a desktop system called Tenant Pro that was a pretty good system for its time. And then almost the week a new cloud-based system came out, I was on that and evaluating it, got to know the founder and some of the support staff. That system was called Propertyware, which still exists today. And I saw the potential when you grow in the cloud space, you can do so much more from anywhere. And property management is a business where, we train our franchisees, our franchise partners, we call them, the owners. We train them that they don't have to be at these properties physically themselves to do some of the boots on the ground type work. In fact, we leverage the relationships with handymen, with real estate agents, with others to do a lot of the legwork so that the owner can focus on building the business, working on the business. And like you mentioned, many of them will start out as technicians. They start out with a job, so to speak, because the business needs them to operate.
Sure.
But then they can graduate to where they start taking off some of those hats of responsibility on people. And pretty soon, the only hat they really have on at that point is the one of being the leader. Maybe it's the visionary, maybe it's someone who's providing training and guidance and building leadership within the company. And in fact, I had a franchisee not too long ago, a couple months ago, we were having a conversation. And he just says, Nate, should I be feeling guilty that I'm only working in my business like 2-3 hours a week? and the rest of his team is right. I'm like, no, you shouldn't be. That's what you built this for.
Right.
If they could have seen how much work and effort you put into it the first couple of years to get to a point where you could enjoy the fruits of your labor. And that's what entrepreneurship is all about, is creating the life that we want to live. Success is about being able to do what we want, when we want to do it, how much we want to do it, and who we want to do it with, right? And having that independence. And that's something that only entrepreneurship, or maybe a trust fund or the lottery. But for most of us, entrepreneurship is the pathway for that freedom, right?
Yeah.
And that flexibility. And it can be any kind of business. I've just chosen, property management because it's such a resilient and stable business, when in many industries, there's a lot of external and internal forces working to keep that business down. And we love property management because it just flourishes in every kind of market condition. You kind of talked about our early stage of, deciding to get into property management, deciding to franchise. I live by this motto, Paul, of leaning into life. I feel like life presents so many opportunities that if we're just leaning forward, taking opportunities as they come, it allows us to experience things in our lives, experience things in our businesses, experience things with our children and our families that sometimes we feel a little bit fearful of at first. But if we're leaning in and we've got that front step ahead of the other one, it just allows us to go in with faith, trusting that our experience and who we are at that point will allow us to find success. And we surround ourselves with great mentors, great people. We got into franchising not knowing anything about franchising, right? I knew property management. We both knew property management and real estate pretty well. But franchising is a very different business than running a property management company.
Right.
And then as you start selling franchises, you start, training and coaching people to be not just property managers, but business owners and leaders and managers. It's a whole different world that we're in. And I'll tell you what, Paul, I thought property management was fun and a great business. There's no greater satisfaction for me than to see other people find success in business and to help to maybe have a small part, have the platform, have the system, have things presented to them, giving them an opportunity to go into business for themselves, but not by themselves. Being able to see them find success, getting that text saying, Nate, I'm on vacation with my family. We're in Hawaii. This couldn't have been possible without KeyRenter. Thank you so much. Like, that's better than any kind of money I've made, any sort of success I've had in any kind of business. There's no greater thing than seeing people's lives change, which is why we recently changed our motto to changing lives one property at a time, because that's what we're truly about, is impacting people, business owners, team members, property owners, and residents to improve their lives.
Wow. Well, it's so true. So many entrepreneurs get a bad rap, particularly from the media and the naysayers of the world that, all you're in it for is the money, right? You don't care, you take advantage of people. But you and I both know that the opposite is totally true. And you went through that right now in terms of how important that aspect of your business is. There's a lot of people involved, from your renters all the way up to your franchisees or partners. And you're only successful when you help them succeed. and what a rewarding place to be, right? And here's a question for you. When you and Aaron were contemplating this, you maybe a little bit longer than he, it sounds like he dropped the hat right away and is ready to go. This idea for franchising, did you contemplate that? You looking back now, you see this and you're like, wow, this again, serendipity. It was just amazing. But I mean, did you have any clue what you were in for when you made that decision to lean into franchising?
I don't think you ever really know what you're getting into. I mean, if you'd asked me the same question about having children, I'd say no, I had no clue. And I think similarly, franchising, you kind of think what it could be like, and then you get into it. It's a very different thing. Um, but I'll tell you what, it's like it's one of those decisions that you make. In fact, back then, our company was called Premier Management of Utah. Premier Management, one of the most generic names you could possibly have. But as you recall from the story, I had to come up with something very quick. So like Premier Management, okay, that's what we're called, and then we'll figure something out later. When we wanted to go nationwide, we decided, okay, we've got to change our name, and so we were on the pursuit of better name. We even did we offered an extra credit program at the MBA program at the University of Utah for them to come up with a name and branding concept, which didn't pan out, but they got their extra credit, so they were happy. But we actually acquired a company because they were in a position that they needed to sell, and they had a great name, KeyRenter Property Management, and we could trademark it. We changed the branding up, and it allowed us to get to a place of being ready to seize the opportunity. Okay, so we bought that in 2011. We didn't decide to franchise till 2013. So we were already leaning into the idea of going nationwide. And we're in this place of trying to figure out, okay, are we going to be managing or opening these offices ourselves, owning these offices, or is there something better? And when that opportunity, I felt inspired by, I should write a thank you card to the founder of Menchie's and just let them know, or a fruit basket or something, or maybe some frozen yogurt. But I think being prepared, being ready to see the opportunities out there. Mm-hmm. And I think that happens a lot in life and business is when we're in the frame of mind, we've done the groundwork, we've kind of paid the price, or we've prepared ourselves to see what's out there, then we're able to take advantage of those things that we come across.
Do you believe that in order to truly see that, though, to lean in, take that next step, you have to be leaning into the step before that, right? You have to, it's a pathway, right? It's not, you don't get the map up front. You take a step.
I absolutely believe that. I don't think it's like if, okay, I want to invest in real estate and I want to buy a property. If I really am going to tell the universe or whatever it is, and put it out there that I want to do this, am I going to am I just going to stay flat-footed and wait for something to happen? Or am I going to start talking to a great lender, right? Am I going to start networking with some real estate agents? Maybe I'm attending a real estate investor group to see what sort of deals are being passed around. Mm-hmm. I'm going to put it out there with friends, family, whoever, social media. I'm going to start taking some action to make it so those opportunities present themselves. I don't think anything comes to us that's really of meaning or value just because it's life and the universe saying, you're a great person, here's this great opportunity. No, it's because we're putting in that work, that energy to make luck happen, right? To make opportunities happen for us. And I think the same thing for business, for anything in life. It's just, we've got to do that work on the front end and start making things happen around us.
Yeah. No, I love it. I agree. I say all the time that, regardless of your religious beliefs and affiliation, if you're an entrepreneur, you understand the idea and the concept of faith, and there's something out there, and it's You're not getting your
Yeah,
paycheck on Friday. You've got to make it happen, and that's when the magic happens. And you're a
absolutely.
testimony to that. I mean, it's an amazing story. I do want to get into a little bit though about Aaron and your partnership, and so unfortunate that he passed away with cancer. But I mean, talk about a little bit about working with a partner and how you guys were able to do that so successfully over the years, because that's hard in business for a lot of people to have a partner.
Partnership in business is very similar to marriage in life. And there's a lot of similarities, and it's interesting. Aaron and I would talk about this all the time, and we kind of embraced that. We even would joke around that, we dated for about, a year, and then we were engaged, and then we actually wrote up operating agreements, right, for an actual partnership. But I think that what really worked for us is what works in marriage is open communication, being able to work through our challenges, being willing to engage in healthy conflict, right? What I like to call entering the danger zone of the zone of being uncomfortable to share thoughts and feelings and how something's impacting me in my personal life, or the decisions that we're making. I think the most important thing, absolutely, in any partnership, I even tell our franchise partners this as they're partnering with us in a franchise, but also if they are considering going into their business with someone else, is they have to be aligned in two areas: vision, which is who we are, or it's more like our purpose, why we're doing business, what are our goals, where do we want to take this thing, how are we going to accomplish that, and then values, vision and values. And values is at the core of our decision making, who we are, what we stand for. And I think that too many partnerships, business partnerships, marriages, they fail because they don't have alignment in vision and values, and they don't communicate often enough about those things. And so Aaron and I being very intentional, and I think there's a lot of hindsight here too, because
Sure.
in the moments, I think that we oftentimes were distracted by just the day to day, and we had to try to bring us back together. In fact, there was one moment we had kind of a rough spell where we actually sought out some counseling, just like in marriage.
Yeah.
Right. And we had a peer, someone we respect, very successful in business. We just said, hey, we'd love for you to just help us through some challenging times that we're having. And I'll tell you what, coming out of that and having engaged in some healthy conflict with our friend as a mediator, man, we left those sessions and we left that experience so much stronger than we'd ever been in any of our business relationship. And so coming through that, and that was towards the beginning of franchising, actually, because there's a lot of stress in opening a franchise. There's a lot required. And it's amazing how we were able to get through that. And then it helps that we were friends, right? And it helps our spouses are friends. And we all got along really well. And it helped that we had a lot of similarities in terms of our interests. But we're also very different people. And he and I, like I said, yin and yang. Our personalities are very different. And we complemented each other really well. And I think that helped us a lot. And so when he was diagnosed with cancer it was November, December of 2019, and that just it rocked us, right? Fortunately, we had already done some smart things. We had key man policies on each other, which any of your viewers, listeners that are in business, especially with key people or partners, that's just a must have, right? You got to have key man policies, start thinking about succession and mapping out, if this happens to you, what happens to your responsibilities in the business, and just have some, even if it's rough and loose, having an idea of what you would expect of the other partner in a difficult situation, so that when a difficult situation happens, it's not as difficult to get through, right? So when he was diagnosed, we had some of this worked up, but then we had some time. In fact, the plan was for him to beat cancer, right? He had actually stage 4 appendix and colon cancer
Oh my gosh.
diagnosed at the same time. They actually found the cancer because he had an appendectomy. His appendix burst from the cancer, and they opened him up and just saw all this cancer throughout his. Anyway, he got so close to beating it that 2 months before he passed, maybe 2.5 months before he passed, we just thought he was going to be in the clear.
Yeah.
And then it just hit him so hard, just exploded throughout his midsection and his body. He got to a point very quickly he couldn't eat because his intestines were blocked, and just he declined very rapidly. And the four of us, he and I and our spouses, had come together several times and worked out what would happen with this business and that business, and what would we do with the franchise. And I bought her out of a couple businesses and actually remain partners with her now in our franchise. Her name's Andrea. She's a wonderful friend and business partner. She's so smart and she's so talented. She doesn't have an operating role. Aaron never wanted her to feel like she needed to work in the business, but she's learning more and more and getting more and more involved in in our shareholders meetings and different things that we're doing. And if she wanted to run the business, I'm sure she'd do a great job. She's so smart and so talented. But it's an honor to work with her and to have the partnership that we have now that came through this very difficult situation. I lost a brother.
Yeah.
It was a very difficult time. We actually brought in an interim CEO to run the company for about a month before he passed, and for a little while after. I started stepping back in November of 21 and stepped into the CEO spot in June last year. And so it's been a whirlwind, Paul. Over the last few years, we experienced 35% growth year over year throughout this time.
Wow.
Even still selling franchises and growing the business. And I attribute that 100% to the team that we have that, stayed committed because of their love of Aaron and for Aaron and his family and for our franchise partners that are number one in our book as far as our priorities. We want them to succeed, and we've got to stay focused on their growth and their success. And so interesting time. I'd be happy if you have anyone that wants to reach out to me sometime and kind of talk about that partnership dynamic and what it was like for us, as well as some things to do to prepare, just to be prepared in case something could happen, and what I learned through that, and how none of us are really ready for those sort of things to happen, but they do, whether we like it or not.
Well, it seems to me you're right. I mean, no one expects it. Everyone understands theoretically it could happen, but no one really believes it's going to happen in their situation. But your point about you guys, you sought counseling early on when you started the franchise in 2013 because of all of the stress and all the change and everything. That was really a really brilliant move. And because you were able to clear the runway before you got in this whole nother phase of your business. And this idea that you guys embrace you're friends, but you embrace the conflict. I had another partnership couple on not too long ago. Good friends of mine. They owned a series of car washes, and they're also long-term partners. And it was the same answer. It was like we call each other out. They're great friends, but they'll have that conflict, but they'll work through it and become stronger on the other side of it. And I think that was preparation for you. And sad thing about Aaron and that whole experience, but the positive with his wife now coming on board and all the great things that I think are now developing from that is a testament to your vision and values and what you guys have built. And that's what a model to aspire to for all of us, for sure.
Well, thank you. Very kind words. Appreciate that.
No, I mean, it's true. It's true. I mean, it's not a straight journey, and we get torpedoes come at us, from the hidden boats periodically, right? And you just, you have to deal with it. And so
I
maybe
think we have to
we can
deal
talk
with it.
more about that at
I
some
think we
point.
have to deal with it and find ways to feel gratitude for those things that come at us.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't trade anything for the experiences that I've had. I miss Aaron every day. Every day I think about him. In fact, I've got a bobblehead of Aaron right here. And
I love it.
it brings me a smile to see that when I'm in my desk. I mean, he's such a part of me, and I feel him around me,
Yeah.
and I feel that his influence. But it's like we got to find ways to be grateful for the really difficult things that happen in our lives. It may be hard in the moments, but
Right.
hopefully afterwards we can see how we've grown. I would love to have Aaron back. I'd love for him to see what we've done since he's passed, and just all these things. I miss being able to just text him and call him and be able to run things and celebrate certain things together. But I'll tell you what, um, it's helped me grow as a person. I think it's helped a lot of our, you know, even his family grow, and we've been able to experience things because of the situation that we've been through, um, that I wouldn't trade.
Yeah.
I wish there was a way to have both. I would love that, but I don't think there is. Sometimes you got to go through really hard things in order to get to where you need to be in life. So
So embrace the journey is what you're saying. Somebody said embrace the
embrace
suck,
it.
right?
Embrace the suck, embrace the journey. It's
And,
gonna
and,
suck. And in fact, that's a good point. We tell our franchisees, you're gonna have days where you just say,
yeah.
what did I get myself into? And then
Right.
you're gonna have days where you say, wow, what did I get
Yeah.
into? This is amazing. It's a
Yeah.
roller coaster, right?
Man, I tell you what, that's the biggest lesson I've learned and experienced in my entrepreneurial life is it's not a straight path. Boy, you're up and down, and it's a roller coaster. But
Sometimes it's in the same day.
yeah, oh yeah, for sure. We had those days. So winding down, Nate, what would be one or two last nuggets of advice you'd give to an aspiring entrepreneur or business owner or somebody that wants to go to that next level? Um,
Yeah. I would say, I think some of these things you'll hear from others too, but just, I think, find people that are where you want to be and do what you can to be friends with them, and to have them mentor you or provide value to them so that they want to be with you. I think you're gonna get more from other people than you ever could doing it on your own. I wish I would have learned that more earlier on, say 15 years ago, rather than trying to just figure everything out myself or with Aaron and other people. But really take that mentorship serious and have great mentors around you, even if they don't know they're your mentors. Like, I've got several mentors, right? That authors or whoever it is,
yeah.
read books, man. Just get hungry for growth. Jim Rohn, one of my kind of the mentor of mentors, he says, if you want to achieve more, you must first become more.
Mm.
And I think the more we level up as individuals and people, it allows those opportunities, as I'm talking about, to present themselves, and us to have the vision to see those and take advantage. And sometimes those opportunities are people that we can align with and bring into our circle. And so that's probably my biggest piece of advice, is just keep going. Don't ever give up, right? Don't give up. There's the difference between success and failure is just simply those that succeed never gave up when they could have. I think that's the big lesson for me here, Paul.
Well, that's great. That's great, Nate. Wonderful sage advice from someone who's got the smoke of battle coming off his hair right now, coming out of his
I've got a little bit more
head.
here too. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So, te- wrap it up. Tell anyone who's interested that maybe they're considering a business, or maybe they've got a business they'd like to diversify, maybe start another business. You've obviously got a very successful one. Property management has and is a very compelling business model. And how do they get up with you? What do they do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can always just email me if you want, nate@keyrenter.com. Hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm there as well. Um, you can go to keyrenter.com as well, and you can learn more, or keyrenterfranchising.com, and you can learn more about the franchise opportunity. You can see some of our nonprofit efforts, some of our giving back efforts with KeyRenter Cares, and some of those things are important to us. Learn more about our culture. I think that's one of the biggest things is we want to create a sense of community among our business owners, and the culture is really important to us. We're very intentional about building the culture that we have. And so property management is a great business. Sometimes, we might think it's not the most sexy business, right? It's not a new tech firm or something like that. I'll tell you what, it stands the test of time.
Yeah.
One of the oldest businesses is owning rental property, right? And when you can get surrounded in that industry where it's protected by laws, there's all sorts of great opportunities. It's a good business to be in. It's a great vehicle to take us up and down the rugged terrain of life, and it's a great place to call home. And so, if you're a real estate agent, a broker, especially if you already have your license, because property management does require licensing, it's a great bolt-on business, or it could turn into the primary business because you're seeing that recurring revenue is just so much more attractive than transactional revenue that comes in. And so hit me up. Happy to chat anytime.
Awesome. Well, Nate, this has been awesome. A great interview. Boy, your stories and experience has been truly fascinating. I appreciate your time today.
Hey, thank you, Paul. You're a good man. Appreciate all you do. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Thanks.